legendary coach Bill Cowher.
Not quite Three Rivers Stadium, but it was close. It was good. Thank you, Bobby. I really appreciate it. And also to L&M, and as Bobby made mention to Mr. Joe McGee for the last 7 years since I stepped down and I did move to Raleigh, the usage of his racquetball court, which was a haven for me in my transition to my next profession. And many battles were in there with Mike Devine and George Richards and I, and so thank you, Joe, for allowing that to be a little of a haven for me to kind of release the competitive juices. But also thank to you attendees. What you do in growing and servicing fruits and vegetables to today's consumers is invaluable. Just recently I just read where the obesity rate in youth has gone down. And so you say why, and obviously it's a case of prioritizing healthy living habits. And when you think about healthy living habits, you think of two things. Number one, exercise, and number two, eating properly. So fruits and vegetables are the healthiest things that you could possibly eat. I think we're all trying to kind of transition ourselves into having better eating habits. So give yourselves a pat on the back for making America healthier. Now, I know that's not easy. I mean, you get questioned all the time, so many people at so many levels. But it's really about building and nurturing relationships, whether it be with operators or whether it be with each other. In conferences like this, the collaboration that takes place, it's about relationship building, because relationships are about building trust and credibility. Now, that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But it starts with being knowledgeable and being perceptive. Knowledgeable and perceptive while also facing the ever-challenging state of a changing, number one, economy, which has been very much fluctuating and flexible, and that makes it very challenging. And number two, the weather. I think we're all happy to be down here, and if you're not happy to be down here, just turn on the Weather Channel this morning. But when you look at the weather and what you guys do, the polar vortex that's happening on the East Coast, the drought happening on the West Coast, it's a challenge, and it's ever-changing. So I sit there and say the key to you in staying on top in the midst of change, which was something I felt like that was my job in Pittsburgh for 15 years. I sat there and had to deal with the change of rules, whether it was with free agency, whether it was the game on the field constantly changing with and without instant replay, the changing of players, and you're constantly evolving with that. I think the biggest thing to me when you look at that and staying on top is, number one, is to stay informed. Study successful trends, and I encourage you to do that. It's very important to keep up with what's going on and what's important and what's been successful. It's okay to copy something and to incorporate that into what you're doing. Number two is to be forward thinking. It's very easy to get caught up and be a product of the past and not be willing to change. But I encourage you to be a part of the future, to be a risk taker, to be innovative, to be creative, because that's how you stay on top. And then number three, you have to make tough decisions, but hold people accountable, but also do it with a degree of sensitivity. I hope this conference allows you to leave here, number one, more informed. Number two, a better feel for where you are individually as you talk and listen to others. Collaborate. And number three, a more clear understanding of how you can continue to grow at every level. See, my talk this morning does not focus on results. It focuses on the process. To me, the results are a byproduct of the process. You say, what is the process? Well, number one, to me, it's a mindset. It has structure and guidelines with a sense of direction. It's very focused, yet flexible. Listen. And the last thing is the process, it's never ending. You never stop growing. So your business and understanding your market, maximizing your resources, and providing top quality is a lot. It's not easy. It's like putting together a championship football team, a winning game plan, and then have to sustain that level over a period of time. See, I'm a true believer in how you feel and how you act all starts with how you think. I think life is about recognizing where you are and embracing the moment. And having said that, quite often I get asked two questions. Number one, why at the age of 49 would I step down from Pittsburgh when I had a good young quarterback, best management in the National Football League, and a good young team to win for years to come? And quite frankly, while there's a lot of factors, the biggest one was I had a window of time to spend with my kids. And that became more important to me. I could always go back to coaching, but I wasn't going to get that window back. And the second question I get asked is, would you go back to coaching? Now, I take that year to year only from the standpoint of why close a door you never have to close. But really, I love my job at CBS, and when you really think about it, every week for 17 weeks, I get to coach 32 teams in the National Football League. I have not lost a game in 7 years. So I feel blessed. I mean, at 56 years old, I've been able to experience a gambit of emotion while working a job I loved. I had the trust and support of a lot of people along the way. But life is about growth. And honestly, for me, it started when I grew up in Pittsburgh. My father, as a young man, he taught me three things that I remember to this day. The very first thing he said to me is, finish what you start. Don't quit. He said, if you quit once, you'll quit again. So we had to make sure that we thought things through, because if we started something, we were going to finish it. It's about perseverance. The second thing he taught me is you have to work harder than the other guy, your work ethic. And I always thought I was really good. No one would work harder in practice in front of a coach than myself. I would do everything a teacher asked me to do, the homework, everything on time. I remember him pulling me aside one time. He said, you know what, son? Your work ethic isn't what you do under supervision. Your work ethic is truly what you do when no one else is looking. And I really thought about that. You know, the sacrifices that you make, that only you know you make. The times when I knew everybody else was going down to the pool, they were going to go out. Those were the times I said, I'm going to stay at home, either do extra work of some nature. But it's what you do individually when no one else is looking that really measures one's work ethic. And I think only everyone in here can look at themselves individually and know where you stand with that. And then the third thing he said was never be intimidated by anyone or anything. You have to be self-confident. It's very hard for others to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. So I remember those three things growing up, and you know, I sat there and felt very fortunate in a very blue-collar family in Pittsburgh. And I took those to college. I was fortunate to play 5 years in the National Football League, and trust me, every year when the final cut came, I was just lucky to still be on the team. I then got into coaching at an early age of 28, thanks to Marty Schottenheimer. I spent 7 years as an assistant, 4 in Cleveland, 3 in Kansas City as a coordinator. And then at the age of 34, I was able to live a dream. I was asked to come back and coach my hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And honestly, the first thing I said when I got the job, I thought, you know what? If I don't screw this up in 3 years, I can go back to my 20th high school class reunion as a head coach of the Steelers. That was my first goal. And I made it. I made 20, 25, 30. But you know what? It was a football team that in the previous 7 years has only been to one playoff under Chuck. And Chuck Noll, fantastic coach. No one is even going to walk in his shadows. But I knew what I was walking into. I mean, it's a football town. Football is everything with what the expectation is. The tradition, 4 Super Bowls, you kidding me? But you sit there and you look at it, and I said, successful teams, like businesses, they have common characteristics. The first thing you have to have is a plan, a vision. And you have to have people in a leadership position that can keep everyone focused on that plan. because you're going to get tested with temptations. You're going to get tested with distractions. So having someone that can keep you focused on a goal is very, very important. And the second thing is, you got to have, number two, is people to carry out that plan. You got to have good people. I've always said you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And I think you say that so much as a parent to your kids. And how many times I've sat there and said it's about the people you surround yourself with, whether you know it or not, or like it or not, they will sit there and influence and have it be a reflection of who you are. So you surround yourself with good people. Well, what makes up good people? One of the first qualities I thought about was dependability. I've had a lot of flashy players come and go. But I wanted the guy that I knew what I was getting each week. I knew what I was getting each day. I would take less talent, but you give me someone who's dependable, and you know what? We'll put enough pieces of this puzzle together and make sure everyone's little thing that they do special, but we can work collaboratively and win a championship. And the championship team that we won in Pittsburgh was not our best team, but it was our closest team. So dependability is number one. Number two, people who embraced their role. You know, I've always thought the most important person in our organization, and probably in any business, to me, is the receptionist. And you say, what? I said, yeah, because you only get one chance at a good first impression. So you sit there and talk about the minute you walk into some place, that person is the first impression you have. So I sat there and tried to make sure I nurture the concept that every role is important, that every spoke in the wheel had the same degree of importance. Yeah, some people get more attention. The quarterback got more attention. The outside linebacker, the great defensive back, they got a lot of attention. But it was the people that were down in the pits, the linemen. The people covered kicks. Those are the people that I made sure that did not get forgotten. So you had to nurture the concept of embracing your role, and then when I had a chance to let them move forward, they then moved forward and got more responsibility as long as they did what they did and did it to the best of their ability. You have to try to nurture that. And the third thing was people who grew and learned from life experiences. Remind me of a teacher. A teacher came in one day, first day in September, told the class, I want to ask you a question. Tell me something that happened to you this summer, an experience you had, and what you learned from it. The little girl put her hand up. She goes, teacher, yes? She goes, my mom bought me a bike. And I was so happy. I've been asking for this bike for 3 years. And I said, what can I do for your mom? She said, go to the grocery store. I went to that grocery store. I went in there. I got the milk, eggs, and bread, put it in my basket, ran back home on my bike as fast as I could, came up the stairs. I gave my mom the groceries. She took out the milk, took out the bread. She took out the eggs, and half of them were cracked. Well, what'd you learn? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay. The little girl put her hand up, and she said, you know, I spent the summer on a farm, Miss Teacher, and it was the most unbelievable experience of my life. I watched this little chick be born and grow to become a chicken. And that experience in itself, from walking and crawling to running, I gave it a name. And I almost feel like that chick knew its name. Well, this chicken, they laid 7 eggs. We put them in the incubator. I called my 7 friends. I said, listen, you ain't going to believe this experience I had. Think about a name, because I'm telling you, they can understand their names. I called the 7 friends up. Incubator opened up after that. Only 4 of the 7 eggs lived. And I had to call 3 of my friends and tell them I could not give them the chick that I had promised them. And I was very, very sorry for having let them down. And she said, what'd you learn from that? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. And said, it's really pretty good. And the old Johnny in the back says, well, I have one. He goes, it's kind of one. And no, come on, Johnny, we've had 2 great examples. He goes, okay, well, my uncle was a fighter pilot. Fighter pilot. He goes, yeah. He goes, and he had this unbelievable experience that he came home to be able to tell us about. What is it? He goes, well, he was a fighter pilot. He was flying, and he got shot down. All he had with him was 7 rounds of ammunition, a machete, and a 6-pack of beer. He got shot down. He landed the plane, drank the 6-pack of beer, formulated a plan. He got surrounded by 30 enemy soldiers. Got out, killed 20 of them with the 7 rounds of ammunition, 7 with the machete, and the last 3 he killed was with the martial arts he learned when he entered the service. And he was able to come home and tell us about that experience. Like, wow, what did you learn from your uncle? Don't mess with him when he's been drinking. But a plan, good people, and a development of an approach. An approach built through commitment, based on trust and persistence. You are tested every day. There's so much negativity, I believe, that exists out there. There's so many critics that are out there. I think attitude is everything. And just remember, your attitude is a choice. You control it. It doesn't control you. I was always big in Pittsburgh trying to keep things in its proper perspective. How you view circumstance. And because of the profession that I was in, we were in the public eye. And I used to always remind them of this. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are. Don't take yourself too seriously, but don't beat yourself up. It's never as good as it seems, but it's never as bad as it appears. I think it's very, very important to keep things in perspective. I'll give you two examples of perspective. In 2005, the year that we won a championship, little people know that it's the journey that you have to talk about. And that journey that year, we were 7-2 after 9 games. We lost our next 3 games. The third game in a row that we had lost was at home against Cincinnati. So after 12 weeks, we were 7-5. Now, we were the year before in 2004, we were in the AFC Championship game. We had a quarterback who was in his rookie year. He's in his second year. We were preseason favorites to go to the Super Bowl. And we found ourselves at 7-5 and fighting for our lives. Well, that Monday the week came in, I made everybody look in the mirror and grade themselves. And I'd never done that before in my 13 years. And the reason I did that is I didn't want everyone else looking around for excuses. It's so easy to point the blame to someone else instead of looking in the mirror. So I had them all grade themselves, and it was very eye-opening. And we sat there and we got done doing that. They came back in Wednesday of that week, and I said, listen, all we're going to do is we're going to take this one game at a time because that's all we can control. And I want you to take it one day at a time, and that starts with practice today. So everything on the goal board was with 1 week. So we had to open up against the Chicago Bears in week 13, playing at home, in the snow, and they had won 7 in a row. We beat them. We beat them. Not our best game, but we found a way to beat them. The next week was probably the biggest challenge. We had to go to Minnesota. They had won 8 in a row. And we were going up there playing in that dome. Probably our best game of the year that we played, and we beat them. So we're 9-5. Then the next game we had to go was to Cleveland. Well, they weren't very good then. They're not very good now. Hey, listen, I played and coached there. I can say that. I have every right to say that. I got roots. Speaking the truth as well. We beat them pretty easily. And then week 16, we had to beat the Detroit Lions at home, and we won the game. We got into the playoffs as a number 6 seed. I gave the players off, told them to come back Wednesday, but on that Monday and Tuesday in the papers, all you heard about was no 6 seed has ever been to an AFC championship game. So those of you who think that this Steelers team is going to do anything in the playoffs, get ready for another disappointment. It's just another playoff Steelers team that's going to fail and let you down. Not only have they not been to a championship game, obviously they've never been to a Super Bowl. Well, I was not naive to think that the players at home were not reading this. So as they came in on Wednesday, as we prepared to go on our 6 seed journey, which was 3 away games, if we'd win, move on to the next team. And our first one started in Cincinnati, who ironically was the last team we had lost to at home. But as we got in there at 8:30, the meeting started, and at 9 o'clock we always had a team meeting. And at 9 o'clock I went over the itinerary usually for the week and talked about the offense defensively and what our plan was into each game. But on this particular Wednesday, I told them to close their books and to listen to me. That I was not naive to think that I saw what they were reading. The fact that no 6 seed has ever been to a championship game, which consequently means never been to a Super Bowl, and how this team is going to let everybody down. I said, let me just tell you about a history lesson. His name was Christopher Columbus. 1492, he sat there in Spain, a little town, and as he sat there and looked out over the water, people told him that the world was flat. But yet he had a plan, he had a vision, and thought something else was out there. And not only did he have a plan and vision, but he was able to encourage and persuade members to join him on this journey, not knowing where it would embark. Against all the naysayers that said you're going on a death trip. Why would you do something like this? There's nothing out there. The world is flat. You're going to fall off. We will never see you again. But Christopher Columbus and his crew, despite all the distractions, all the temptations to stay, had a vision, had a plan, and despite the storms along the way, he went on to discover America. And my point is very simply this. Don't let the future don't let the future stand in the way. Don't let history dictate your future, but let your future make history. And Troy Polamalu, I knew they were ready to play right there, put his hand up. I thought we could play right now. And he said, Coach, I said, yeah, Troy. He goes, Columbus didn't discover America. He discovered the West Indies. And I said, Troy, you can't let the facts stand in the way of a good story. The second one I'll keep in perspective, which I think is probably the best story I can think of. It was a 1994 AFC Championship game. In 1994, we had hosted the AFC Championship game against the San Diego Chargers. They were a fifth seed, excuse me. And we were favored heavily in this game. First championship game in Three River Stadium in 25 years, in 15 years. That year in 1994, we were number one rushing offense, number one defense. We basically imposed ourselves on people and put ourselves in this position. That if we win this game on this day, we go play Miami in the Super Bowl. If we lose this game, we have to coach in the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. Well, as we sit there and open up this day on this number one, that's January 18th, 1994, and playing the San Diego Chargers, you would like to have weather to be a factor. We woke up that day at 65 degrees and sunny. Not a good omen. Fine, we're okay. We beat this team earlier in the season. Well, as the game unfolds, a couple big plays the San Diego Chargers get. It gets to the fourth quarter. We are down by 4 points with about 5 minutes to go. We were not a team that was big in throwing, but we happened to hit a couple big plays to Eric Green down the seam. Found ourselves as we're moving down the field. All of a sudden, you can just feel it. We're going to do it again. We had come back so many times to get to this point. The confidence was there. The people were feeling it. The stands were rocking up and down. We got down to a situation where it was 4th and 2 at the 2. Now, as we sit there, we call timeout. The place is up. It's an uproar. You could hardly hear yourself think. And we sit there. We had Barry Foster, 1,600-yard rusher, number one rushing team in the league. Impose yourself. I sat there and I knew exactly what I wanted to call. I pulled Neil O'Donnell over, Ronnie Earhart. I got this call. I've been putting myself in this position. If it came down to one call, I didn't want it in the hands of someone else. If I'm the captain of this ship and it's going to go down with me making the call. I said, Neil, here's the call. He goes back out, tells the fans, please, we're trying to make this call. We come out, John L. Williams, fullback, Barry Foster. Eric Green, big tight end, 2 receivers. San Diego sees the people we come out with. They bring the regular people out there. Perfect. We sit there, we break the huddle. All of a sudden we break the huddle. Eric Green shifts out to the right. John L. Williams shifts out to the left. Now we have this double open formation with only Barry Foster in the backfield. I could see San Diego's defense. They're a little confused. They're running around. They're talking. Perfect, just like we thought would happen in practice. We then sent Barry Foster in motion. Now we have no one in the backfield. More talking going on. Snap the ball. Neil O'Donnell goes back. Barry Foster makes a move, crosses the goal line, cuts over to the right. Neil throws it maybe a tad late. He sits there and Barry getting ready to catch it. Dennis Gibson reaches over at the last minute and knocks down the pass. Incomplete. And all you could see is the people deflated. You could hear a pin drop. And all you could hear over there was the San Diego Chargers because for the first time in team history, they were going to the Super Bowl. I sat there and went to Bobby Ross and told him thank you or good luck to you. Wish you nothing but the best. Represent the AFC well. I walked into the locker room and told the players who were in their cubicles, we did our team prayer. I said, there's nothing I can say right now that's going to make you feel very good. But when you walk out of here today, you walk out of here with your heads held high. the excitement you brought to the city, the season that you had, that this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. And you be proud walking out of here. Walk down to the coaching staff. They're all in their cubicles, head down. Told the coaching staff, best coaching job I've ever seen done. This team played better than they really were. And it was because of the efforts of the coaching staff in there to continue to put people in positions to succeed week in and week out. No better coaching job was done by any other team that season. I said, come in tomorrow, we'll talk about the off season. I just went right around, walked out that door, around the hall, went into my office in Three Rivers Stadium. I saw Mr. Rooney. I said, sorry, Mr. Rooney, I let you down. I let down the city, but we'll be back. He gave me a pat on the shoulder. Walked over to my wife. She gave me one of those peck on the cheeks, like, hang in there. It's all right. And I walked over to my daughters. Megan was 8. Lauren was 6. Lindsay was 5. She was at home with the babysitter. Walked over to Megan, and these were big fans. Megan looked up to me, and she said, Dad. I said, yeah, what, Meg? She goes, why didn't you give the ball to Barry Foster? He could have got 2 yards. And Lauren said, Megan, Mom said not to say that to Dad. And Megan said, Lauren, you said the same thing in the booth. And I said, girls, honestly, now's not the time. Honestly, I said, you know what? In hindsight, maybe you're right. Maybe I overthought it. But you're going to learn in life sometimes that, you know what? You have to go with what you feel. And some of the greatest lessons learned in life are through tough experiences. So as we got in the car, we went home, awkward moments of silence, periods of reflection. It's been a great year. What could have been, how close we were to going to a Super Bowl, getting one for the thumb. So as I got home, I figured I had one more that I had to console. I pulled into the driveway and I hear this music. I'm thinking music. And so I walk in with a babysitter there. Lindsay's 5 years old. She's running around the kitchen table and she's got this hula skirt on. She goes, Daddy, we get to go to the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. I said, no, Lindsay. We wanted to go to the Super Bowl. She goes, in Florida. She goes, we've already been to Florida. We've never been to Hawaii. That's perspective. But the bottom line, I would say, is never forget your roots. Be thankful for what you have and embrace each day. I know it's not always easy, but your attitude is a choice. We all love to be around positive, energetic, and caring people. Life is about perspective. How you feel and how you act all starts with how you think. When it's all said and done, to me, there's 2 types of hardworking people, and all you people in here are here because you're hard workers. There's successful people. They love what they do, and they exude that feeling. They touch and influence so many people along the way. They embrace the process. Then there's people who have success. Success that's measured by today's standards. More control, money, power. But those people probably have sacrificed more than they've cherished. Families and morals. They're basically lonely people that have it all. So I encourage you, at the end of the day, to be successful people. Because it's not about what you achieve. It's about who you touch along the way. Thank you. I will take some questions if anybody has any questions of any nature. I'm sure there's a lot of people here from different parts of the country. Feel free to ask. I will try to answer.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Over here.
Okay, yes.
Really, Dan Marino, you're kicking him off CBS? Really?
Last time I looked, I wasn't making that call. Dan is a
do
very
something
good friend of
about it?
mine. Dan is a good friend, and it's the unfortunate byproduct sometimes of changes that have to be made at the top. I mean, Dan and Shannon and I have been together for 7 years, so Dan will be fine. He's a great guy, quality guy, and I've talked to both him and Shannon. They'll move on. It's a loss for us, but what we have to do is embrace Bart Scott and Tony Gonzalez and move on from there. 2 good guys as well. Tough business.
I had the same question. Will you miss Shannon?
Oh, absolutely. Shannon, I think one of the things about the show we had at the NFL Today is we all really liked each other. We had a great respect for each other. We'd watch the games, and, from the time I left watching a football game, I don't think I'd spent a Sunday without having someone around me that hadn't played it. And so we had disagreements at times, but they were out of respect. And sitting next to both those guys, it'll be hard because I got to know them both, not just professionally but individually. They're both really good guys.
Thank you. I recently had the opportunity to see your one-on-one interview with Coach Bill Belichick.
Yes.
And by the way, firstly, I want to thank you for getting him to say more than 5 words at one time. I'm from New England, so you can understand that. But more importantly, 2 great coaches having this meeting. What would you say would be one of the basic philosophical differences in your approach to the game between you and Bill?
It's hard to say philosophically. I think that we both have great respect for the games. I think a lot of people don't know Bill and I, back in 1989, when Marty Schottenheimer was let go from the Cleveland Browns, I was in a little bit of limbo. They wanted me to stay there. I didn't like they weren't sure where they were going to go, what direction they were going to go. And so I actually went down to the Senior Bowl and I interviewed with the Giants and Bill Belichick, who was the defensive coordinator at the time. I had been coaching the secondary, and he actually offered me the job to be the secondary coach with the Giants. And the same day they offered it to me, Marty took over the job in Kansas City, and he offered me to be the secondary coach there. So as it turned out, I sat there and said, okay, one's here, one's there, but I owed my loyalty to Marty because he gave me my first chance. So I went with Marty. Well, at that time, when I went there, as it turned out, Dave Adolph would not come there. I ended up becoming the linebacker coach and coordinator, and I'd never coached linebackers before. Bill Belichick ended up hiring Al Groh to coach linebackers, and so he went to the secondary. So he had never coached a secondary before. So we actually spent one day that spring at Giants Stadium, him and I, in the morning, me teaching him about defensive back play, in the afternoon, him teaching me about linebacker play. And we got to know each other and talk regularly for a couple years, in 89, 90, until he became the head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 91. Then it changed, and then it really changed when I became the Pittsburgh Steelers coach in 1992. But we've always had a mutual respect for each other. One thing I liked about Bill is Bill's got a great respect for the game. He's been around it. Like you say, the thing that's happened today with the media and being out there and having obligations to be more exposed than you've been before, that's not why he's in the game. He's there. Any player that's played for him, they respect him, they like him, he's got a sense of humor. And we have a history going back. We competed a lot. I beat him when he was in Cleveland, and he had Vinny Testaverde. He beat me when he was in New England, and he had Tom Brady. So we competed a lot against each other. And I think there's a great respect. I don't know how much philosophical differences there are, because I think you take each team you have, which I love about him and what we try to do, was accentuate the strengths of your team and try to hide your weakness. And don't try to fit players into systems, but build a system around players. That was our philosophies.
Skipper, or a grower actually, that asked me to come to this. Well, I was coming to the luncheon anyway, and he knew you were there, and he said, could you do me one favor? And I said, of course I could. I don't know how successful I'll be, but I'll do that. He said, can you get Bill Cowher's autograph? And I said, I'll try.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
He's a passionate,
We'll make it happen for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
How do you think football will be affected by everything that is happening with the brain damage from taking hits in high school and college and then, the NFL? How do you think the game's going to change?
Well, I like to think that the game needs, just like we all do in this room, I mean, it's always going to change. There's always going to be constant change. There's things you're having to deal with. I think the commissioner is making a very good attempt at trying to make the game safer. We are doing a better job of teaching it at the grassroots level. I think the more information you get, the better way you teach people. I think it's going to reflect. And listen, we're in a very transparent world. And it's about time we had an openly gay football player come out, and we can talk about that openly in the locker rooms. So, these are times that are changing. It's very transparent. And I think the thing that has to happen, just like with the Miami situation a year ago in the locker room, you have to have a pulse for your team. You have to be able to talk openly about things. You talk about collaboration. The collaboration has to happen in any business is you have to have a pulse for what's going on. What are the hot button issues? And I encourage anybody here who has a monitoring people. You have people working under you. Make sure you have a pulse for those people. And I used to always have something in place and try to talk with people to be able to nip something before it became a problem. And you can't take anything. That's why I use the word sensitivity. Accountability and the sensitivity. Accountability is, I think the one thing our world misses today is holding people accountable for their actions. And I really am big on that. But you also have to be sensitive. You also have to be sensitive to you have to be a good listener. Good leaders are good listeners. They're able to take and try to understand exactly what the circumstances are, and then you have to assess how much accountability is really there. So the only way to be able to do that is you have to have a good pulse. You have to have good people in place where you can at least get information and be able to then make the decision of what you need to do accordingly, because everything should be done subjectively. To sit there and say that I treated everybody the same with every football team I had is not true, because the expectation level of a player who's making $6 million a year is not the same as a guy who's making $60,000 a year. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. So there are some people who are held to higher levels of expectation. So, but yet you have to have certain guidelines and structures as it relates to being on time in a meeting. I've always hear me say that if you're not early, you're late. That's true. And that's just out of respect. And so there's certain things you do. There's certain things that you twinge. And I think that's the key to being successful over a long period of time. And I said it back before. Study trends. It's ever changing. Be forward thinking. That I'm telling you, it's very, very important to try to stay ahead and stay on top. Don't sit there and bask with where you are, because the minute you start to bask, someone's going to pass you up. So and then make the tough decisions, and it's not always easy, but you got to hold people accountable and doing it with sensitivity. So I go back to those same three things. To me, that's the key to being successful over a period of time.
Coach, on a lighter side, you have 2 minutes left.
Yes.
You're in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And you have 3 quarterbacks to choose from. Are you ready?
Yes.
Tom Brady.
Where's the ball?
20-yard line. 3 timeouts.
I got 80 yards to go?
80 yards to go,
Okay.
3 timeouts.
I had Neil O'Donnell once. Okay, go ahead.
You have Tom Brady,
Yes.
Peyton Manning,
Yes.
and Joe Montana. Who do
Yeah.
you choose, and why?
Ben Roethlisberger. You've always got to give me other. Okay, but if I only had those 3 guys.
You got those 3 guys.
Tom Brady.
I'm from New England. Thank you, Coach. That's
Okay.
all I want to know.
And I knew that. I set him up. Anybody else? Hey, listen. Oh, yeah, come on.
Hey, Coach,
Kansas City guy, right?
West Coast guy.
Okay, that's what I said.
In the 70s, yeah. The other West.
Okay.
Further
I know.
west.
I got you. You got the drought going on, but then you guys are getting rain. You're good, right?
Little snow.
Okay.
Northwest.
Oh, Northwest. Yeah, that's a Seattle team? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My best friend, that's a good team, by the way, Seattle. Go Seahawks.
I agree. I loved them, too, in 2005.
In the 70s, my best friend chose the Raiders first, so
Huh?
I had to choose another team to be my team.
Right.
I chose the Steelers in the 70s. So way back when. Before. So I wasn't on the bandwagon but before. Who are your heroes from the teams in the 70s, your football heroes, and why? And a second question, will you ever coach again?
In regards to the second question, I have got a great life right now. I really do. And it'd be probably very unlikely, I would say. Very happy, healthy, and still feel like there's a lot of things I can do better with the profession I'm in. And there's a lot of things I still want to do. And I got the time to be able to do that now. In regards to growing up, I think you had to look at, I was a defensive guy growing up, so, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Andy Russell, that fearsome foursome, Ernie Holmes, Furness, Greenwood, Green. I had a chance to, Joe Green was a scout for us for years, and I would just sometimes be walking to a dinner, like I couldn't believe I was walking next to Joe Green. And, but it was just, the one thing about that city, which is to this day very special. I mean, my mom still lives there. My brothers still live there. It's like time tested. It's like it's grown, but yet you go back there and you just feel like you're still in the same time warp. It's just like there's a family feeling there. There's accountability, but there's warmth. It's a special place. I was a very blessed man, and I never got to meet the chief. I met Mr. Rooney. Mr. Rooney, to this day, we still talk regularly. He was like a father. He was a boss. He was a mentor. He was a friend. He always cautioned me about, be careful about retiring. You should be working. And I go, I'm going to work, and because just be careful, because that's not what it's all cracked up to be. And I go, I know. So I mean, he was really good. We had losses. He'd come in, he'd ask me how everybody was doing, family was doing, how your parents doing, this leg. And the last thing he'd ask is, we'll be okay, right? I go, yeah, we're going to be fine, Mr. Rooney. He goes, I know. I mean, he was best in the tough times. He was a rock of stability. I was very blessed to have a guy that I knew, my goal was to be able to hand him that trophy. When I did that day, he made me, I was accountable to him. It made the other decisions easy because, you know what, I owed it to him. He took a chance on this kid at 34 years old who had never coached before. He saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see in me. And I owed him that. And to this day, I am forever grateful.
Coach, as a Steelers fan, watching you take a team and the relationship you had with Ben Roethlisberger always intrigued me. You take a young guy like that and you kind of basically threw him into the fire. And I always admired the fact the way you nurtured him as a coach, and really, I seen it. The talking on the sidelines and young kid, coming out of the MAC conference or whatever, you take this guy, you throw him, all of a sudden he's in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that relationship that you have with him, do you still talk to him a lot? I mean, does he call you after a game, or do you ever say, like, why did you do that? Or, I always wonder about that relationship, especially now you're on TV. How's that relationship still go today?
Well, I think when you get with players, it builds over time, just like you talk about trust. And relationships take time. And a lot of the best relationships I had players over a period of 7 or 8 years. I pushed the players. I held them accountable. When we always think it was like parenting. I was pretty regularly the bad cop. And I was the guy that, Ben Roethlisberger, you can't, listen, we'd won 6 in a row. You can't do that. You can't just sit there and abort a play, run outside, and think I'm just going to throw it down to Plexico Burris and he's going to catch the ball every time. You can't do that. At some point, you got to stay in there, go through your progressions, and do the right things. And so many times he'd walk out of my office and go like, "Coach, can I ask you one question?" He'd go, "Yeah." He goes, "Did we win last week?" I go, yes, we won, but just understand what I'm saying. So I'd go down to Ken Wisenhunt and said, "Listen, Ken, he's a little bit upset, so just pat him on the back, tell him he's doing a great job. He is, but he can't continue to do this because he's a young player. You're trying to train young players." And I think over time, and I saw him last week, the year I did a Jets-Pittsburgh Steelers game with Phil Simms and Jim Nantz, first time I've ever done it. So we met with the players the night before the game, and talking with Ben then, and I've talked with him a couple of times before, but he was very, very complimentary in a third-person type of way. He goes, "I once had this old coach once who told me that sometimes a punt is not a bad thing, and sometimes throwing the ball away is not a bad thing." And I didn't really believe him back then, but I kind of believe him now. And it was his way of saying, "Thank you, Coach." And, and I just think those are the types of things that are rewarding. He is a tremendously competitive kid. It takes sometimes players and people longer to mature, if you see with your own kids. There's no time frame for kind of getting it. And I think he gets it now. I think it did take him a long period of time because I think he had too much success too early. Sometimes it's very hard to tell someone you need to change this and this. But didn't I just win my first 16 games? Yes, you did. But let's look at this from the greater scheme of things and through a longevity type of thing. And, he gets it now. And I think with a lot of players, that was what you missed the most from coaching is the relationships and getting a boy and watching him turn into a man. Because you're seeing some kids come out of college, they're getting a lot of money and freedom, sitting next to a guy who's got 3 kids, who's at the end of his career, where the most important thing's about a championship, next to a guy who said, wow, man, if you're a Pittsburgh Steeler in this time, it is awesome. They had 2 different agendas. And I told Kimo von Hoffen came in one time complaining. And I said, Kimo, you can't change what motivates other people. But what you can do is try to influence them. You can't change people, but just try to influence them by continuing to do things your way. And he'll realize that's why you've been in this league for 13 or 14 years. Otherwise, as I would try to tell players, if you continue down this path, you're a one-contract player. And, the guys that have been here for a period of time, they're professionals. They understand the commitment, the sacrifices, and the responsibilities that go with being in the public eye and being a professional athlete representing your team in your city. So, someone like Ben is there now, but he's had guys like Jerome Bettis who kind of took him under his wing too. I mean, that's why you got to have, my best players were my best leaders. And I think when you have a good organization, when your best people are your best workers, that's a good place to start.
Coach, as a long-suffering Redskins fan, as we get a new coach every year or two, I always hold out hope when your name is mentioned. But
oh, I feel your pain, brother.
My question is...
You do have a good quarterback. I mean, everyone can jump on RG3. He just, go, question.
My question is, when Snyder chews this next one up and spits him out, what exactly is your number? How much would it take to get you...
Hey.
I'd like to see you come help restore some pride to our nation's capital.
I appreciate that. I tell you, it's amazing how much better you get with the years after you haven't been coaching. It's like that backup quarterback. Everybody wants him. And if I go somewhere after that first loss, you're a bum. The game's passed you by. But you know what? Honestly, I think, I like Mike Shanahan. And, unfortunately, it just didn't get done. And, it's hard to say why. I've never been one to judge something because you just don't know what's taking place in that building. And I think it'd be unfair to sit there and comment on something that you are really speculating on. I don't like to comment on speculation and deal with hypotheticals, but I do believe that the Redskins had a good young quarterback who really basically had an injury that it's going to take a year to recover. Everybody can't think you're going to be an Adrian Peterson and come back in 6 months from an ACL. RG3 was hurt this year. He played hurt and tried to play hurt. So I think he'll be better. I think Jay Gruden is a good offensive coordinator, so I think you have hope. I think that, it's a tough division, but, I think it's very, very winnable, and I think the Redskins still have a lot of good things in place. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. The first is, what are your predictions for Phillip Rivers and the San Diego Chargers? And then how do you think instant replay is going to change the face of baseball?
Ooh, yeah. Listen, I am a fan of replay. I just think that we should do like hockey does. I think it should be centralized. I think with our modern day technology, you cannot tell me that we can't get someone that's in New York City or wherever that it is centralized and get a feed and be able to give them the actual, whatever the right call is. I think baseball definitely needs it. I think number one is, to me, it's just get it right. That's to me. I don't care. I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, replay didn't get." If it's replay, we got a chance to slow it down. You get the chance to see it. You make a decision and you move on. So I'm a big fan of replay. And Phillip Rivers and the San Diego Chargers. I love Phillip Rivers. I think what they did a year ago was awesome. I think he's a good NC State boy. You're talking about a competitive guy. There's no greater competitor than him. I think that they're going to be in the midst of it. But still, Denver's a team to beat in that division.
Coach?
Yeah.
First of all, my heart is beating through my chest at the possibility of addressing you. So, excuse me, thank you so much for coming here.
Oh.
Through your career, you've motivated, you've driven so many people, you've made tough decisions at cutting players, affecting their lives, as well as motivating and inspiring players to greatness beyond just the game themselves. You've come here and you've motivated us and inspired us. Thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it.
What drives you? My question to you is, sir, what drives you? What motivates you? What inspires you to get up and find that inspiring, that drive? What fuels you, sir?
I guess, for me, like where I am is I went right from playing the game at NC State, and I played the game in the National Football League. I was that blue-collar guy that made it every year and just try to, I was just so happy to have a job. I got into coaching at the age of 28. I lived it. I mean, I was just doing it. And so when I stepped down at the age of 49, I had a contemporary once say to me, back in 2004 actually, I asked the contemporary, I said, why did you come out of the booth and come back down to doing this coaching? And he said to me, he said, Bill, you've been in it long enough to know when you first get into it, it becomes a part of your life. And the longer you stay in it, it becomes your life. And that stuck with me, and that hurt. Because I started looking around and thinking, is this all I'm going to be as a football coach? And I just thought there's more in life. And so I sat there, and when I stepped down, I did it with open, I didn't want anything planned. For so many years, I had everything planned. I could tell you what I was going to do 6 months from now on exactly an hour. And for a year from now, I just had every notebook. Everything was planned out. I just wanted to be able to do things unplanned, to travel, to do things, but stay involved. And I was able to get the job at CBS, which was a blessing. And honestly, right now, for me, it's to become a better person, to become a better speaker, to become better at what I do on TV. And at the same time, I feel like I owe it to myself to be able to enjoy life, to be able to travel. I've got a great mate. I've got my best friend. I got, someone I can just enjoy and share this with and get out of the country and go to other places I didn't even know existed before. I don't even think I knew who the president was when I was coaching. I was so tunnel visioned and so driven. And when I see these coaches today, like when I go back and see them, I'm healthier than I've ever been, to be honest with you. I eat better. I exercise more. I sleep better. It's a pretty good life. And I'm thinking, why would I go back? I know I haven't lost a game in 7 years. I haven't won a game in 7 years either. And that's the argument to that. But at the same time, I get to play racquetball at Mr. McGee's place. I play golf periodically. But you know what? I still continue to try to challenge myself and try to touch. And then, I enjoy doing these talks. I enjoy whatever little bit I could give to someone about just be thankful for what you have, and trying to deal with that with your kids as well, is embrace each day. And you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to happen. And so you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So any little bit of advice that you can give to someone that can help them through a situation that you are similar with, I enjoy doing that, and I really do.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
I wish you the best, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, hey, listen, thank you. And again, I really do. I really do say thank you for all you do. You're like the offensive lineman of our economy. We couldn't do this without you. You're right down in the nitty gritty. You want to talk about making America healthier and give us options of having a better life. It's because of what you do, and I say that from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. We all need you, And I wish each of you happiness, good health, and more importantly, safe travel back to wherever you're going. It's going to be a heck of a day traveling tomorrow. But God bless.